Welcome back to Under Baobab Skies. Tonight, we delve into why being an oracle in ancient Ife was more than just a calling. We explore the mystical realm of ancient Egyptian astronomy and its profound impact on their civilization. In the shadow of towering pyramids, along the life-giving banks of the Nile, there lived those who read the heavens as if they were sacred scrolls. This was ancient Egypt, not just a kingdom, but a mirror of the cosmic order. A place where stars guided pharaohs, where time was measured in cycles of rebirth, and where the sky itself was a canvas for divine stories. Here, being an astronomer was not merely a profession. It was a sacred duty, a bridge between earth and sky, a responsibility that weighed upon the soul and lifted the gaze beyond mortal sight. You did not choose this path. You were chosen, selected by the patterns in the night sky, by visions that haunted your waking hours, by priests who recognized the spark of celestial wisdom in your eyes. To be an astronomer in Egypt was to exist in two realms: a conduit for the cosmic deity, an interpreter of celestial messages, a guardian of time for both royalty and commoners. You charted the movements of stars. You predicted the life-giving floods of the Nile. You were revered, consulted, sometimes feared, and occasionally doubted, for the closer you came to unraveling the mysteries of the universe, the more threatening you became to those who clung to earthly power. And yet, without your knowledge, the temples could not be aligned. The harvests could not be timed. The very fabric of Egyptian society would unravel. Tonight, under the vast expanse of the desert sky, we bring you 4 tales, each woven with stardust, ancient wisdom, and the profound consequences of peering into the cosmic abyss. First, we step into the world of Egyptian astronomers, where towering obelisks cast shadows that marked the passage of time, and the movements of celestial bodies foretold the fates of kingdoms. Next, we witnessed how pharaohs relied not just on military might, but on the precise calculations of their astronomers, and how the destiny of an entire civilization was tied to the rhythms of the cosmos. Then, we gaze upon the intricate zodiacs carved into temple ceilings, not mere decorations, but complex maps of the heavens, and explore why they were more than art. They were gateways to understanding humanity's place in the universe. Finally, we trace the legacy of Egyptian astronomy, from the halls of Alexandria to the observatories of the Islamic Golden Age, and ponder what was gained and lost as this ancient wisdom spread across cultures and time. Because each astronomical discovery was not just a scientific breakthrough, it was a glimpse into the divine order of creation. So, close your eyes, let your mind drift among the stars. Feel the cool night air of the desert on your skin. You're listening to Under Baobab Skies, and our cosmic journey begins now in the land of the pharaohs, where the Nile's waters mirrored the Milky Way. Astronomy was more than a science. It was the very foundation of existence. The ancient Egyptians saw in the night sky a reflection of their world, a celestial Nile flowing through the heavens, guiding both the dead and the living. Here, in the cradle of civilization, time itself was born, measured not by ticking clocks, but by the eternal dance of celestial. The rising of Sirius, the dog star, heralded the annual flood, a cosmic alarm clock that set in motion the rhythm of Egyptian life. Priests astronomers stood atop temple roofs, eyes fixed on the horizon, their calculations determining the timing of sacred rituals and mundane tasks alike. They were the keepers of cosmic knowledge, their observations shaping the very architecture of temples and tombs, aligning stone with star. In the Valley of the Kings, pharaohs were laid to rest in chambers adorned with maps of the night sky, their journey to the afterlife figured by the same stars that had ruled their earthly reign. For in Egypt, the divide between heaven and earth was but a thin veil. The Great Pyramid of Giza, a marvel of precision and cosmic alignment, stood as a testament to the astronomical prowess of its builders, its shafts pointing to key stars, its base a perfect square oriented to the cardinal points with astonishing accuracy. But the stars held more than just practical knowledge. They were the dwelling places of gods, the source of divine wisdom. In the Book of the Dead, the deceased were instructed to name the stars and constellations to prove their worthiness. As night falls over the desert sands, imagine yourself standing beside an ancient astronomer, reed pen in hand, etching the movements of planets onto papyrus, each careful observation a thread in the tapestry of eternity. For in this land where past and future merged in the eternal present, the study of the stars was a sacred act of creation itself, a way of maintaining Mat. The cosmic order and Balancifat held chaos at bay, and ensured the continuation of all things. So as we delve deeper into the astronomical legacy of ancient Egypt, remember that each constellation, each celestial cycle, was not just a point of light or a measure of time, but a story written in the language of the gods themselves. In the ancient city of Ife, time moved in spirals, not straight lines, not clocks, but in circles, like snail shells, like palm fronds, like the swirl of sacred cowrie divination trays. The air was thick with the whispers of ancestors, and the earth pulsed with the rhythms of the Ordar. Here, in this cradle of Yoruba civilization, the veil between worlds was thin, and those chosen to pierce it were not seekers, but the sort. To be an oracle in Ife was not something you studied for. It was something that took hold of you, a calling that came unbidden, like a sudden gust of wind on a still day. The signs were subtle, yet unmistakable to those who knew how to look. A child who dreamt of thunder but woke with calm. A young woman who spoke in proverbs no one had taught her. A boy who stared too long into fire and began to hum the prayers of old. These were the whispers of the divine messenger, reaching out to touch mortal lives. And when chose, it was not a gentle caress, but a firm grasp that would never let go. The elders watched for these signs, not with suspicion, but with reverence and caution. Their eyes, weathered by time and wisdom, could see the weight of destiny settling on young shoulders, for when chose someone, it meant the community would have to give them up. Their life would not be their own anymore. They would belong to the spirits, to the endless cycle of knowledge and prophecy that flowed through the veins of Ife like lifeblood. Training was sacred and secret, hidden from prying eyes, shrouded in rituals as old as the Red Earth itself. You learned under Babylos and Ionifas, priestly guides who held the wisdom of Odu, thousands of verses, hundreds of divination patterns, all memorized, all lived. Not just words on dried palm leaves, but living, breathing truths that danced on the tongue and burned in the heart. In the cool shade of sacred groves, you were taught to read signs in palm nuts, to interpret the dance of dust in the air, to hear truth in the silence between words. Your fingers learned the textures of divination powder, the weight of sacred implements. Your eyes were trained to see beyond the visible, to glimpse the threads of fate that bound all things. But even more than knowledge, you were trained to listen, not just to clients or kings, but to the murmurs that rose from ancestral shrines, to the rhythms of the Ord, to the trembling gut instinct that said yes, speak, or no, wait. For an oracle was not just a vessel of knowledge, but a living bridge between worlds, a conduit through which the wisdom of ages flowed, sometimes in a trickle, sometimes in a flood. You learned to stand firm in the face of that flood, to let it wash through you without drowning, to speak truths that could shake kingdoms or mend broken hearts. all with the same steady voice. The training was long, and it was hard. There were nights when the weight of knowledge felt like it would crush you. Days when the voices of the spirits were so loud you thought your head would split. But slowly, surely, you were remade. Forged in the fires of ancient wisdom, tempered by the cool waters of divine insight. By the end of this part of your journey, you began to understand. To be an oracle in Ife meant bearing the full heat of knowledge without the protection of power. You became the drum others danced to. But you could never stop drumming, even when your own hands bled. For the rhythm was not yours to control. It came from somewhere deeper, older, vaster than your mortal form could comprehend. And so you learned to surrender, to let go of who you thought you were, and become who needed you to be. In the marketplace, they might still call you by your birth name, but in the sacred spaces, in the moments between breaths, when the world held its secrets close, you were no longer just a person. You were a voice, a vessel, a bridge. The weight of it could be overwhelming. To know that your words could shape destinies, guide rulers, heal wounds, both seen and unseen. But there was beauty in it too. In the moments when the veil lifted, and you could see the intricate tapestry of existence spread out before you, when you could feel the pulse of creation thrumming through your veins, in perfect harmony with the beat of your own heart. This was what it meant to be chosen, but to be both more and less than human. To be a keeper of secrets and a revealer of truths. As the sun set over Ife, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, you would stand at the threshold of your new life. Behind you, the memories of who you once were. Before you, the endless spiral of time and knowledge that you are now bound to traverse. And in that moment, caught between worlds, you would take a deep breath, feeling the weight of your calling settle onto your shoulders like a familiar cloak. For you were an oracle of Ife now, chosen by, not by men, a living testament to the enduring power of ancient wisdom in a world that never stopped changing. Your journey had only just begun, but already you could feel the rhythms of the universe aligning with your heartbeat, the whispers of the ancestors growing clearer in your ears. And as night fell over the sacred city, you would close your eyes and listen for the voices that would guide you, for the truths you were destined to speak, for the stories that were yours to tell in the language of spirits and stars, of palm nuts and sacred powder, of the endless, spiraling dance of time and fate. This was your calling. This was your destiny. This was what it meant to be an oracle in Ife, chosen by to carry the weight of worlds upon your shoulders, and to light the way for those who sought guidance in the darkness. And so, as the first stars began to twinkle in the velvet sky, you would take your place among the keepers of ancient wisdom, ready to face whatever the spiraling paths of fate might bring, with the strength of flowing through your veins, and the whispers of eternity echoing in your ears. For you were an oracle now, and your story was just beginning. In the heart of Ife, oracles were not secluded seers, hidden away from the world. They were woven into the very fabric of city life, their presence as essential as the air we breathe. From the grand halls of the palace to the bustling market stalls, their wisdom was sought after, their words carrying the weight of destiny. Imagine, if you will, the oracle being summoned to the palace, the air thick with anticipation, courtiers and nobles alike holding their breath as the oracle's footsteps echo through the corridors. They come not as a subject, but as a conduit of divine knowledge, ready to shape the course of kingdoms with their counsel. At the crossroads, where paths diverge and futures hang in the balance, you might find an oracle deep in consultation, their eyes, seeing beyond the physical realm, guide travelers and merchants alike. The shrine, a sacred space where the veil between worlds grows thin, becomes a sanctuary of revelation when the oracle steps within its bounds. Even in the cacophony of the marketplace, amidst the haggling and laughter, the oracle's presence commands respect. Stall owners pause in their transactions. Seekers of truth gravitating towards the figure who holds the keys to their destinies, from the joyous occasion of a naming ceremony to the solemn rituals of a coronation, the oracle's wisdom touches every aspect of life. They are there to bless unions, to guide warriors into battle, to ensure bountiful harvests, and to ease the suffering of the ill. Their words are seeds, planted in the fertile soil of human experience, growing into the mighty trees of fate. But this intimacy with the human condition, this constant immersion in the ebb and flow of mortal lives, exacts a heavy toll, for the oracle is both of this world and apart from it, forever walking the razor's edge between the realms of flesh and spirit. Consider the sacrifices they make, the ordinary pleasures denied to them. Certain foods, once savored, become forbidden fruit. The oracle's palate must remain pure, unsullied by earthly indulgences that might cloud their connection to the divine. Cleansing becomes not just a ritual, but a way of life. The oracle's body is a temple, and like any sacred space, it requires constant purification. The touch of coins, the cold gleam of silver and gold, is denied to some. For others, the simple act of laying down to rest becomes a careful choreography, their sleeping direction dictated by unseen forces, and the mirror, that window to vanity and self-reflection, becomes a portal too dangerous to approach. For what might an oracle see in those depths? Perhaps not just their own reflection, but the swirling mists of time itself, threatening to pull them into visions they are not yet prepared to face. As they move through the world, the oracle carries an aura of otherness. It is not a showy display of power, no grand gestures or booming proclamations. Instead, it is a quiet authority that settles over a space like a blanket of snow, muffling the ordinary and ushering in the extraordinary. Watch as they pass by a group of children at play. The laughter dies on their lips, the game forgotten as young eyes widened in wonder and a touch of fear. Even the most boisterous child falls silent, sensing something beyond their understanding. In the marketplace, where gossip flows as freely as water, the oracle's approach brings a hush. Mid-sentence, tongues still and eyes lower, conversations dying like candle flames in a sudden gust. For who knows what secrets the oracle might hear, what truths they might speak in return. Yet this power, this constant awareness of the unseen, is not always a welcome companion. Some oracles, burdened by the weight of their gift, retreat into solitude. They seek refuge in quiet groves or atop lonely mountains, hoping to find peace in isolation from the very people they are meant to guide. Others crack under the relentless pressure of knowing. Imagine carrying the knowledge of every joy, every tragedy, every triumph and failure that is yet to come. How does one bear the weight of a future that cannot be changed, only prepared for? Dreams, once a refuge of fantasy and subconscious wanderings, become laden with portent. Every night brings new visions, new warnings, new burdens to carry into the waking world. The line between sleep and wakefulness blurs, until the oracle can no longer tell where one ends and the other begins. Visions no longer wait for the proper time and place. They intrude on daily life, turning a simple walk through the market into a dizzying journey through time. The oracle might reach for a piece of fruit, only to be assaulted by images of drought, of withered crops and hungry children. A casual greeting becomes a glimpse of betrayal, of whispered plots and sharpened knives in the dark. There is no respite, no way to close one's inner eye to the truths that demand to be seen. The oracle can no longer pretend, can no longer indulge in the blissful ignorance that allows others to move through life unburdened by foreknowledge. And yet, despite the cost, despite the loneliness and the weight of knowing, the oracle cannot turn away, for the people need them as surely as they need air to breathe and water to drink. The oracle is more than just a seer, more than a fortune teller or a prophet. They are the healer of a society's soul, the one who holds up a mirror to show not just what is, but what could be. Truth, even when it cuts like a knife, even when it burns like fire, is the medicine that a community needs to grow, to heal, to become more than the sum of its parts. The oracle administers this medicine with a steady hand and a compassionate heart, knowing that the pain of revelation is necessary for the joy of transformation. In the end, the oracle's path is one of sacrifice and service. They give up the simple pleasures of ordinary life. They shoulder burdens that would crush lesser souls, all for the sake of guiding their people towards a better future. They are the bridge between what is and what could be, the voice that speaks when the gods fall silent, the light that shines in the darkest of nights. As we close our eyes and picture this scene, we see an oracle walking along a forest path. Their white robe, a symbol of their purity and connection to the divine, stands out starkly against the rich greens and browns of the forest. The air is thick with the scent of earth and growing things, the whisper of leaves in the breeze, a constant backdrop. But listen closely, and you'll hear more. The distant, steady rhythm of drums, echoing through the trees like a heartbeat, and layered beneath that, the soft murmur of prayers, carried on the wind from unseen lips. These sounds weave together, creating a tapestry of the sacred and the earthly, much like the oracle themselves. This is the world of the oracle, forever walking the line between human and spirit, a world of wonder and burden, of insight and isolation, a world where every step is a balance between two realms, and every word has the power to shape the future. In the shadows of ancient Ife, where whispers of the divine danced on evening breezes, not every prophecy found a willing ear. The oracle's words, heavy with the weight of destiny, sometimes clashed against the unyielding walls of mortal desire. Kings, their crowns gleaming with ambition, turned away from truths that threatened their reign. Generals, their hands calloused from gripping swords, refused to hear of battles lost before they began. And families, their hearts swollen with hope, recoiled from the bitter taste of a no when they had prayed for a yes. In these moments, when the oracle's lips parted and unwelcome future spilled forth, a dangerous tension filled the air. Not because the seers themselves harbored violence within their bones. No, their power lay in gentler realms. But because truth, when it stands in opposition to the dreams of the powerful, becomes a seed of fear. And fear, once planted, grows wild and untamed. Some oracles found themselves cast out, their sacred tools abandoned at the city gates, their crime nothing more than speaking what the spirits had shown them. Others faced darker fates, accused of twisting magic to their own ends, labeled as witches by those who could not bear the weight of their words. There were whispers, too, of oracles who simply vanished after royal readings. One day their presence graced the sacred groves. The next, only silence remained. Did they flee? Were they spirited away by those who feared their visions? The city held its secrets close. But the absence of these voices echoed louder than any prophecy. Yet even in exile, even when silenced, the oracle's presence lingered. Their words, once spoken, could not be unheard. They haunted the corners of palaces, whispered in the ears of merchants as they haggled in the marketplace, and visited the dreams of children who had never known their faces. For a truth denied does not cease to exist. It simply waits, patient as the earth itself, for the moment when eyes are finally ready to see and ears are prepared to listen. And Ife, the very soil, remembered those who had borne thee of vision. that sacred power flowing from Aladamari himself. Their footsteps remained etched in the dust of sacred groves. Their touch lingered on the smooth surfaces of divination trays, long after their hands had been stilled. As dusk settles over the city, painting the sky in hues of amber and deep purple, a solitary shrine stands empty, its walls, once adorned with offerings and whispered prayers, now bear only the faint traces of what once was. An oracle's staff, its intricate carvings, telling stories of wisdom passed down through generations, leans forgotten against the gnarled trunk of an old Iroko tree. The ground before the shrine is littered with the tools of divination, cowrie shells scattered like fallen stars, wooden tablets etched with symbols whose meanings have faded from living memory. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves, carrying with it the faintest echo of prophecies long sighted. This is the cost of turning away from truth, the price paid when the comfort of illusion is chosen over the harsh light of foresight. Yet even here, in this place of abandonment, there is a sense of waiting, as if the very air holds its breath, knowing that one day, perhaps, someone will come seeking the wisdom that was cast aside. For the power of the oracle does not die, it merely slumbers, dreaming of a time when its voice will once again be heard. In the great compounds of Ife, life continues. Children laugh and play in courtyards, unaware of the weight of history that surrounds them. Elders gather to share palm wine and stories, their words carefully chosen to avoid stirring old ghosts. But beneath the surface of daily life, a current of unease flows. For those who know, who remember, the absence of the oracle's guidance leaves a void that cannot be easily filled. How does a people navigate the treacherous waters of the future without a trusted hand to point the way? How do leaders make decisions when the voices of the spirits have been silenced? Some turn to other forms of divination, seeking answers in the patterns of thrown cowries or the whispers of ancestral spirits. Others place their faith in the strength of their own judgment, believing that the wisdom of mortals can replace the insight of the divine. But always, there is the nagging doubt, the wondering of what might have been avoided, what glories might have been achieved had the oracle's words been heeded. In the markets, where gossip flows as freely as palm oil, hushed voices speak of omens, a sudden flight of birds from the sacred groves, the unexpected blooming of flowers out of season. Surely these are signs that the spirits are restless, displeased with the silencing of their chosen mouthpieces. And in the palace, behind heavy wooden doors inlaid with ivory, rulers who once dismissed the oracle's warnings now find themselves plagued by sleepless nights. They toss and turn on beds of the finest cloth, haunted by the weight of decisions made without divine guidance. For to rule without the oracle is to navigate by starlight when one has grown accustomed to the blazing clarity of the sun. It is to make choices, knowing that the consequences may stretch far beyond what mortal eyes can see. Yet even in this time of uncertainty, hope persists. For there are those who remember the old ways, who keep alive the knowledge of how to read the signs and interpret the will of the spirits. They work in secret, passing down their wisdom in whispers and hidden gestures, waiting for the day when Ife will once again embrace the truth speakers. And sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, when the veil between worlds is at its thinnest, a voice can be heard on the wind. It speaks of futures yet to unfold, of dangers to be faced and glories to be won. Those who hear it may tremble, for the weight of knowing is not easily borne, but they listen, they remember, and they wait for the day when the oracle will return to its rightful place at the heart of Ife. For the city knows, in its bones and in its soul, that without the guiding light of prophecy, it stands in danger of losing its way. And in a world where the spirits walk alongside the living, where the past and future are woven together in an intricate dance. To lose one's way is to risk far more than mere earthly power. It is to risk the very essence of what makes FA great. Its connection to the divine, its role as a bridge between the seen and unseen worlds. And so, as the sun sets and rises again, as seasons pass and generations come and go, the city waits. It tends the sacred groves, keeps the ancient rituals alive, and listens for the voice of truth that will one day return. For in Ife city of 100 kings and 1,000 spirits, the oracle may be silenced, but it is never truly gone. It lives in the memory of the people, in the whispers of the wind, and in the very earth beneath their feet. And one day, when the time is right, when hearts are open and ears are ready to hear, the oracle will speak again, and Ife will remember why it once trembled at the power of truth, and why it must always, always listen. In the heart of Yorubaland, where ancient wisdom whispers through the leaves of sacred groves, a ritual unfolds. It's a ceremony as old as time itself, yet as fresh as the morning dew on a newborn leaf. Before the crown can grace the head of an Orba, before the drums can beat their royal rhythm, before the name of a new king can be spoken aloud, there is a moment of profound silence. A hush falls over the land, as if the very earth holds its breath. In this sacred pause, the veil between worlds grows thin, and in that liminal space, a voice is summoned. Not the voice of man, but the voice of the divine. For in the cosmology of the Yoruba people, power is not a right to be claimed, but a sacred trust to be bestowed. And who can bestow such awesome responsibility? Only the mouth of the gods themselves. The oracle, keeper of ancient secrets, interpreter of divine will, stands as the bridge between the seen and unseen realms. Their words carry the weight of centuries, the wisdom of ancestors long past. In the quiet of the divination chamber, where shadows dance with flickering candlelight, the oracle begins their sacred work. Not to simply foretell a future king, but to peer into the very soul of the one who would wear the crown. For kingship in Yoruba culture is not a mere matter of bloodline or ambition. It is a calling, a destiny written in the stars long before birth. What the Yoruba call Ayanmo, that divine purpose etched into the fabric of one Espin. The oracle's task is to read these celestial signs, to decipher the cryptic language of fate. They cast their sacred tools, cowrie shells, palm nuts, or cola nuts, watching how they fall, listening to the whispers of, but their inquiry goes beyond mere divination. They probe the depths of the candidate's character, seeking answers to questions that echo through eternity. Is this one humble enough to serve rather than rule? Can they bear the weight of an entire people's hopes and fears? Will they sacrifice personal gain for the greater good? Does their spirit resonate with the ancient rhythms of the land? For in Yoruba thought, a king is more than a ruler. They are a living bridge between heaven and earth, a vessel through which divine blessings flow to the people. To place an unworthy soul upon the throne would be to invite disaster. And so, the oracle's judgment is final and absolute. If the signs speak against a candidate, no matter how noble their birth or how great their ambition, they will be quietly set aside. Sometimes, the public never learns of these rejected kings. Their names fade into obscurity. Their almost destiny a secret known only to a select few and the whispering winds. In that hushed room, illuminated by sacred flames, countless futures have been shaped. Tyrants have been thwarted before their reign could begin, their cruel ambitions scattered like ashes in the wind, all by the steady hand and clear sight of the oracle. A woman or man whose power lies not in force of arms, but in the ability to hear and interpret the voice of the divine. As the sun rises over Ife, ancient city of 401 deities, and over all the kingdoms of Yorubaland, remember this truth that has endured for countless generations. No crown has ever graced a royal brow, no scepter has ever been grasped by a kingly hand, unless through the oracle's voice has given its sacred assent. For the oracle is more than a mere advisor or prophet. They are the guardians of cosmic order, the keepers of that most sacred yes or no that can elevate a mortal to divine kingship, consign them to the shadows of what might have been. As we delve deeper into the mysteries of Yoruba kingship, let this fundamental truth be our guide. Power in its truest and most potent form flows not from the barrel of a gun or the edge of a sword, but from the harmonious alignment of human will with divine purpose. In the coming segments, we will explore Firth's intricate dance between earthly ambition and heavenly mandate, the sacred rituals that transform a man into a king, and the profound responsibilities that come with wearing the crown. But for now, let us pause in reverence, as our ancestors did before us, and acknowledge the awesome power of the oracle. That voice which speaks for the gods and shapes the destiny of nations, for in that moment of silence before the coronation, when the fate of a kingdom hangs in the balance, it is not the clamor of the crowd that decides, nor the machinations of politicians, but the quiet fall of cowrie shells on sacred ground. In that gentle sound, barely audible to mortal ears, the future of a people is written. A king is made or unmade, and the delicate balance between heaven and earth is maintained. So the next time you hear of a Yoruba king ascending his throne, remember the unseen journey that brought him there. The tests of character, the probing of soul, the divine scrutiny that deemed him worthy. For in Yoruba tradition, a true king is not born, nor is he simply chosen by men. He is recognized, a vessel of divine will, approved by the gods themselves through the oracle's sacred art. As the sun sets on this exploration of oracular power, let us carry forward this profound understanding. In the heart of your kingship lies a truth, both simple and profound. Before the crown, there was the cowrie. Before earthly power, there was divine permission. And in that sacred balance lies the strength of a culture Ether has endured for millennia and will endure for millennia more. Insert culturally specific CapCut prompt. Royal court with an empty throne under morning light, close-up of cowries being cast on a divination tray beside ancestral symbols. In the heart of ancient Yorubaland, a sacred ritual unfolds. A young man, chosen by destiny, stands at the threshold of power, but before he can claim the crown, he must face the crucible of IPB. This is no mere formality, no simple coronation. It is a transformation of the soul, a forging of spirit and flesh into something greater. For weeks, perhaps months, the King Tubi vanishes from sight. Sequestered in shadowed chambers, he learns the weight of his future. Elders whisper ancient wisdom into his ears, their words etching themselves onto his very being. The oracle, veiled and mysterious, watches, not just a guide, but a guardian of cosmic order. Their eyes pierced through pretense, seeking truth. Does the future king's heart truly resonate with the ancestors' will, or does he merely wear the mask of leadership, hollow beneath the trappings of power? Even after the crown rests upon his brow, the oracle's influence lingers like smoke. Their counsel cannot be ignored without consequence, for the spirits have long memories and longer reach. In some lands, kings who strayed from the divine path found themselves cast down, stripped of title and life. For what use is a crown without the blessing? It becomes nothing more than gilded metal, devoid of true meaning. but a king who walks in harmony with the cosmic dance. He becomes more than mortal. He is a living bridge between worlds, a conduit for the very essence of creation. CapCut prompt. Fade in on a young man in pristine white robes, standing waist-deep in sacred waters. His eyes are closed, face serene as unseen hands pour shimmering liquid over his head. The scene dissolves, revealing a dimly lit chamber. A figure, shrouded in shadows, leans close to a group of weathered elders, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a sacred flame. The chosen one emerges from the waters, reborn. No longer just a man, but a vessel for divine will. The elders nod in approval, their eyes reflecting ancient knowledge. But this is only the beginning. The true test lies ahead in the long nights of IPB. Days blur into weeks as the future king is immersed in lore. He learns of kings past, their triumphs and their follies. Each story a lesson, each parable a warning. The oracle moves like shadow, always present, always watching. Their cryptic words cut through illusion, revealing the truth that lies beneath. Remember, they whisper, a king's power comes not from his crown, but from his connection to the unseen. The young man listens, absorbs, transforms. With each passing day, the weight of responsibility settles deeper. He learns of taboos, of sacred boundaries never to be crossed, of rituals that must be performed, lest cosmic balance tip. The elders speak of past kings who forgot their duty, who let pride or greed eclipse their sacred purpose. Their fates serve as stark reminders of the price of failure. In the flickering firelight, the oracle's eyes gleam. They see beyond the physical, into realms mortal eyes cannot perceive. Do you feel it? They ask, the stirring of within your blood. The King Tubi closes his eyes, reaches inward. There, beneath the surface, a new awareness blooms. The whispers of ancestors, the pulse of the land itself. But doubt still lingers, a shadow in his heart. Am I truly worthy? He wonders. Can I bear this burden? The oracle's voice cuts through his thoughts like a blade. Worthiness is not given, it is earned. With every choice, every action, days turn 2 weeks, weeks 2 months. The outside world fades, becomes distant memory. Here, in this liminal space, only the lessons matter. The young man's body grows lean, his eyes bright with inner fire. He moves with new purpose, speaks with growing authority. Yet the oracle remains vigilant, for they know the true test comes not in seclusion, but in the harsh light of day, when power tempts and duty weighs heavy. As IPB draws to a close, tension builds. The elders confer in hushed tones, weighing the candidate's progress. Has he truly internalized the wisdom, or merely learned to play the part? The oracle steps forward, their presence commanding silence. They lock eyes with the King Tubi, searching his soul. Long moments pass, heavy with anticipation. Then, slowly, the oracle nods. The of the ancestors flow strong within him. They proclaim. Relief washes over the gathering, but the oracle raises a hand. Remember, they warn, this is but the beginning. A crown may rest upon his head, but our work is far from done. We must remain vigilant, for power can corrupt even the purest heart. The elders nod solemnly, understanding the weight of their ongoing duty. For, in Yoruba thought, leadership is not a right, but a sacred trust. As the sun rises on coronation day, the air thrums with excitement. But beneath the pageantry, a deeper current flows. The new Oba takes his place upon the throne, resplendent in royal garb, every inch a king. Yet as he surveys his subjects, he feels the oracle's gaze. A silent reminder that true authority comes not from a crown, but from alignment with the cosmic order. In the days and years to come, the Oracle will remain a constant presence, offering guidance, issuing warnings, for they know that even the mightiest king is but human, susceptible to temptation, to losing sight of his sacred duty. In some lands, the price of such failure is steep indeed. Kings who stray too far from divine instruction face dire consequences. Some are stripped of their titles, cast down from their lofty perches. Others, in lands where tradition holds firmest sway, may be called upon to make the ultimate sacrifice. For what use is a king who has lost touch with the very source of his power? A crown without spirit is nothing but an empty shell, a costume devoid of true meaning or authority. But a king who remains true to his calling, who walks in harmony with and the ancestors, he becomes more than mere ruler, more than mortal man. He is a living conduit, a bridge between worlds. In his actions, the cosmic dance finds expression. Through his judgments, divine will manifests. He stands as a pillar of balance, holding heaven and earth in alignment. His very presence a reminder of the sacred order that underpins all things. This is the true power of the Oba, the secret at the heart of Yoruba, not mere political authority, but spiritual resonance. And so, as the new king takes his first steps upon this sacred path, the Oracle watches and waits, for they know that every day brings new challenges, new tests. The journey that began in IPB never truly ends. It is a lifelong commitment, a constant striving for alignment, for in the end, it is not the crown that makes a true king, but the spirit that dwells within. In the realm of ancient Yoruba society, power wove a complex tapestry of relationships and responsibilities, the delicate balance between kings and oracles, between earthly authority and spiritual guidance, was a dance as old as time itself. But what happened when that dance faltered? When the music of tradition fell silent beneath the thunderous steps of a proud, or picture, if you will, a crowned king growing arrogant with each passing season, his ears, once attuned to the whispers of the ancestors, now deaf to their warnings. The oracle's words, once revered as divine wisdom, now dismissed as bothersome chatter. This was no mere hypothetical scenario. It was a recurring drama that unfolded across generations, each act a test of the very foundations of Yoruba culture. Imagine an Oba, resplendent in his royal attire, surrounded by sycophants who sang only praises. Those who dared speak truth found themselves cast aside, their voices silenced by royal decree. The flatterers rose in rank, their honeyed words a soothing balm to the king's swelling ego. But the oracle watched and waited. At first, they might withdraw their counsel, a subtle rebuke to the wayward ruler. The absence of their wisdom would be felt like a chill in the air, a disquiet that settled over the royal compound. If the king remained obstinate, the oracle might take bolder steps. Public warnings would echo through the marketplace, carried on the lips of traders and farmers alike. The people would whisper, eyes darting nervously between the palace and the shrine. And in the most dire of circumstances, when the fabric of society itself seemed to fray, the oracle might make a dangerous gambit. They would turn their gaze to rival claimants of the throne, not out of personal ambition or political maneuvering, but in a desperate bid to restore the spiritual order that held their world together. These were perilous times for all involved. The Oracle, keeper of sacred knowledge and conduit to the spirit world, now walked a razor's edge. Threats would be made against them, whispered in dark corners, or shouted in fits of royal rage. Some found themselves banished, cast out from the very communities they had sworn to guide and protect. And yes, in the darkest chapters of history, oracles paid the ultimate price. Their blood stained the earth, a grim testament to the dangers of speaking truth to power. But more often than not, it was the king who fell. For you see, the people watched, with eyes sharp as hawks and memories long as rivers. They observed the unfolding drama. They saw the oracle's warnings dismissed, the truth-tellers punished, the sycophants elevated, and the ancestors watched. From beyond the veil, those who had come before bore witness to the corruption of their legacy. When the rains failed to come, and the earth cracked beneath a merciless sun, the people remembered. When once bountiful fields yielded only withered stalks and empty husks, they recalled the oracle's unheeded words. As children grew weak with mysterious ailments, their small bodies racked with fever, the community's collective memories stirred. They remembered the oracle's warnings, now manifest in the world around them. The drought that parched their throats, the failed crops that gnawed at their bellies, the inexplicable illnesses that claimed their young. All these calamities echoed the neglected wisdom of the spirits, and so they returned to listen. Picture now a gathering storm, dark clouds roiling above a royal compound, lightning flashes illuminating the faces of villagers as they make their way through muddy streets, their destination, the oracle's shrine, long neglected but not forgotten. See them huddled together, a sea of anxious faces turned towards the sacred space. The air is thick with anticipation, charged with the electricity of the coming storm and the weight of their collective hopes. And there, emerging from the shadows of the shrine, comes the oracle. Their movements are slow, deliberate, heavy with the responsibility of their role. As they raise their hands to the turbulent sky, ash begins to fall, drifting through the air like snow in negative. This ash is no ordinary debris. It is the physical manifestation of spiritual cleansing, a sign that the balance between the earthly and the divine is being restored. Each flake that settles on upturned faces is a promise of renewal, of a return to the old ways that have sustained their people for countless generations. The oracle's voice, when it finally comes, is both thunder and whisper. It carries the weight of ancestral wisdom and the gentle touch of a parent, soothing a frightened child. The people lean in, straining to catch every word, every nuance. For, in this moment, as the storm rages and ash falls like gentle rain, the true power of Yoruba society is revealed. It lies not in the grandeur of royal palaces or the force of kingly it resides in this sacred connection between the people, their spiritual guides, and the ancestors who watch over them all. The oracle speaks of trials to come, of hardships that must be endured, but they also speak of hope, of the strength that comes from unity and adherence to traditional values. They remind the gathered crowd that even the mightiest Orba is but a servant to the greater good, a steward of the land and its people. As the oracle's words wash over them, a change comes over the villagers. Backs straighten, chins lift, eyes shine with renewed purpose. They are reminded of who they are, of the legacy they carry within their very bones. The storm begins to subside, its fury spent. The ash settles, coating the world in a fine, grey powder, a blank slate upon which a new chapter can be written. In the days and weeks that follow, whispers of this gathering will spread throughout the kingdom. They will reach the ears of the proud Oba, perhaps causing him to shift uneasily upon his throne. for he too must now decide. Will he heed the call to return to the old ways, to listen once more to the wisdom of the oracle and the will of the people? Or will he continue down his path of arrogance and isolation, risking not just his crown, but the very fabric of Yoruba society? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The dance between king and oracle, between earthly power and spiritual guidance, will continue. For it is in this delicate balance that the true strength of their culture lies. And so, as the last traces of ash are carried away on the wind, as the people return to their homes with hearts both heavy and hopeful, we are left with a profound truth. In the end, it is not the loudest voice that prevails, nor the one adorned with the most gold. It is the voice that speaks with the wisdom of ages, that echoes the will of the ancestors and the needs of the people. It is to this voice that they will always return to listen. In the whispers of ancient wisdom, a system unfolds, a tapestry of knowledge woven in gold. More than ritual, more than mere sight, a vast intellectual realm, burning bright, passed down through ages, a sacred art, verse by verse, from heart to heart, not just words, but a living stream, a library of life, beyond what it may seem. To be an oracle, a keeper of law, trained in Odu to the very core. 256 signs, a sacred map, each with hundreds of verses, a poetic rap, human experience coded in rhyme and song. A guide for the present, for right and wrong. The oracle's mind, a vessel of time, interpreting patterns, reason, and rhyme. They didn't guess, these seers of old. They read the signs, both subtle and bold, like doctors with symptoms, lawyers with case. The oracle read fate with elegance and grace. In the dance of divination, known as Dafa, sacred palm nuts cast, or dust marked with care, a moment of silence, a breath held still, as destiny's whispers the air would fill. Binary figures emerge from the cast. 2 lines appear, a code unsurpassed, broken or whole, simple at first glance. But beneath this simplicity, stories advance. 1,000 tales in each sacred sign, of love and loss, of yours and mine. Royal betrayals and ancestral calls, unborn children and great empire falls. In vast library, all life resides. Every human experience, it abides. From joy to sorrow, triumph to pain, in this ancient wisdom, nothing's in vain. Hands weathered by time, yet gentle and sure, cast the sacred nuts on the divination floor. Symbols form slowly, as if by design, under the flicker of an ageless flame divine. Layers of history unfold in the air, oral scrolls of knowledge, beyond compare, fading 2 stars in the cosmic night. A bridge between worlds, dark and light. The oracle speaks, voice soft yet clear, channeling wisdom from far and near. Each word a thread in the tapestry of fate, guiding the seeker through life's twisting gate. In the palm kernel a universe lies, waiting for those with the gift to arise, to read the patterns, to hear the song of where we've been and where we belong. The oracle's eyes, windows to the past, see futures unfolding, destinies vast. In their hands, the nuts tell a tale of paths to follow, of choices to unveil. Through lens, the world takes shape, a map of existence, no detail escapes. From the smallest seed to the grandest scheme, all is connected in this cosmic dream. The sacred dust settles, patterns emerge, past and future in the present converge. The oracle's fingers trace lines in the sand, revealing truths from a distant land. In this moment, time stands still, as ancient knowledge the air does fill. The seeker listens, heart open wide, to the wisdom that provides. For in these verses, in this sacred art, lies the key to the human heart. A guide through life's twisting maze, a light in the darkest of days. The oracle's voice, a gentle stream, carries the weight of every dream, of hopes dashed and triumphs, one of battles fought and deeds undone. In verses, we find our place in the grand tapestry of the human race. Each life a thread, unique and bright, woven together in day and night. The palm nuts rest, their message clear. The seeker's path now appears. But this is not the end, just a start. For wisdom lives in every heart. As the flame flickers, shadows dance, reminding us of life's fleeting chance. To seek, to learn, to grow, to be guided by sacred tree. The oracle's task, now complete, leaves the seeker with wisdom sweet. But the journey of life goes ever on, guided by the light of ages gone. In every choice, in every turn, for in this system, vast and deep, the secrets of existence sleep, waiting to be awakened, to be heard in every action, in every word. For those who listen, for those who see, wisdom sets the spirit free. As the stars above continue their dance, we're reminded of life's grand expanse. In library, encoded in lore, lies the key to what we're searching for. Not just answers, but questions too. A mirror reflecting me and you. In this ancient system, we find our way through the challenges of every day. The oracle's gift, passed down through time, reminds us of the rhythm and rhyme that beats at the heart of all that is, a cosmic dance of sorrow and bliss. So let us honor this sacred art, this library carried in the heart, for in wisdom, old and new, we find a guide, both strong and true, to navigate the seas of fate, to open every closing gate. In palm nuts cast and dust inscribed, the story of our lives described. As the flame dies and shadows grow, we carry with us what we now know, that in each moment, great and small, wisdom touches us all. In the whisper of the wind, in the rustle of leaves, in the laughter of children, in the sigh of the seas, speaks to those who choose to hear, guiding us through joy and fear. So let us walk with open eyes, aware of the wisdom that round us lies. In verses, in nature's song, we find where we truly belong. In this vast library of human lore, we discover what we're searching for. Not just answers, but the art of living, of taking, but also of giving. As the last echoes of the oracle fade, we stand transformed by the journey made, carrying within us a spark divine, wisdom, yours and mine. In the sacred realm of divination, not every soul is destined to become an oracle. The path to becoming Eorkaya Nefer is one of profound dedication, unwavering commitment, and a divine calling that echoes through the ages. Imagine a young child, eyes wide with wonder, chosen by the elders to embark on a journey that will shape not only their own destiny, but the fates of countless others. This child, barely old enough to understand the weight of their calling, is plucked from the familiar embrace of family and placed under the watchful eye of a seasoned oracle. Years stretch before them like an endless road, each day a step deeper into the mysteries of the sun rises and sets, marking the passage of time as the young apprentice absorbs the ancient wisdom, their mind a sponge soaking up every droplet of knowledge. In the cool shade of a sprawling baobab tree, the elder sits cross-legged, weathered hands gesturing as words of power flow from lips that have spoken to the gods. The child listens, repeats, stumbles, and tries again. The verses of are not mere words, but living entities, each syllable a key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. Days blur into nights, and still the learning continues, while other children play and laugh in the village. The young Oracle Tubi fasts under the scorching sun, their empty stomach a reminder of the sacrifices required to commune with the divine. As darkness falls, they sit in silence, the quiet broken only by the whisper of ancient spirits and the distant call of night birds. The apprentice's education is vast and varied, a tapestry woven from threads of healing arts and herbal lore. They learn to read the stars, to understand the intricate dance of celestial bodies that influence life on Earth. Ethics are not taught but lived. Every action a reflection of the sacred trust placed in their hands. But it is the Odu, the sacred verses, of that form the core of their studies. 250. Each Odu is a universe unto itself, containing wisdom that spans the breadth of human experience. The apprentice learns not just to recite these verses, but to feel them, to sense the subtle vibrations that indicate which OD is speaking to a person's unique situation. As the years pass, the young student grows not just in knowledge but in spirit. Emotional maturity blossoms like a rare flower. Nurtured by the challenges and triumphs of their journey, they become grounded, rooted deeply in the earth, yet reaching towards the heavens. A living bridge between the mundane and the divine. Discipline becomes second nature, every action infused with purpose and intent, for they understand that to be A or Kionifa is to carry more than just wisdom. It is to bear the weight of consequence. In the flickering light of a solitary candle, the now-grown apprentice pores over ancient symbols etched on palm nuts and cowrie shells. Their fingers trace the intricate patterns, feeling the energy that pulses within each sacred object. This is not mere academic study. It is a communion with the very fabric of existence. The day of initiation approaches, a culmination of years of preparation. The apprentice stands on the threshold of a new life, aware that once they cross this line, there is no turning back. To be an oracle is to walk a path of absolute truth and integrity. For in this sacred role, lies are not merely frowned upon. They are an abomination, a betrayal of the trust placed in them by both the divine and the human. Each consultation is a delicate weaving of fate. Every word uttered a thread in the tapestry of someone's destiny. The power they will wield is not to be exploited, not for personal gain or fleeting desires. It is a gift, yes, but one that comes with the heaviest of responsibilities. Lives will hang in the balance of their pronouncements, futures shaped by their insights. As the final rituals of initiation begin, the air thrums with unseen energy. Offerings are laid out, cola nuts, palm oil, sacred herbs gathered under the light of the full moon. The elders gather, their presence a living testament to the unbroken line of oracles stretching back to the dawn of time. Drums beat, a rhythm that seems to come from the earth itself, calling to the Orishas, the divine forces that govern all aspects of life. The initiate moves in time with the music, body swaying, mind focused on the transition that is about to take place. In this moment, they are reborn, no longer merely human. They become a vessel for divine wisdom, a bridge between worlds. The weight of their new role settles upon their shoulders like a mantle, both burden and blessing. As the sun rises on their first day as a fully fledged or Kionifa, they step out into a world that now looks to them for guidance. Each person they encounter is a story waiting to be read, a destiny seeking direction. They will sit in consultation, the sacred divination tray before them, cowrie shells and palm nuts arranged in patterns that speak of past, present, and future. Their words will carry the weight of centuries, each pronouncement a ripple in the great ocean of human experience. But even as they dispense wisdom and navigate the complex web of human affairs, they remain ever mindful of their own journey. For the training of an oracle never truly ends. Each day brings new lessons, new challenges, new opportunities to deepen their connection to the divine. They will continue to fast, to meditate, to study. They will gather herbs under moonlight, craft potions to heal body and spirit, and interpret the ever-changing patterns of the cosmos. Their life becomes a living embodiment of the wisdom they carry. Every action a teaching, every word a seed of transformation. And so the cycle continues. As they once sat at the feet of their teacher, now young apprentices will come to them, eyes bright with the same wonder that once filled their own. They will pass on the sacred knowledge, nurturing the next generation of oracles, who will carry the tradition forward into an uncertain future. For in the end, this is the true power and purpose of the Anchionifer, not just to divine the future or heal the present, but to preserve and perpetuate a wisdom that connects us to our deepest roots, to the very heart of what it means to be human in a world filled with mystery and magic. In the tapestry of human understanding, divination often hangs as a frayed thread, dismissed by Western minds as mere superstition. But within the rich fabric of Yoruba tradition stands as more than prophecy. It is a philosophy, a lens through which the world comes into focus, is not a simple fortune-telling tool, but a complex system of wisdom that teaches the intricate dance of cause and effect. It whispers the importance of Karadua, Pielas, a gentle disposition that shapes one's destiny through its verses and symbols, cultivates patience, nurtures reflection, and sows the seeds of humility. Imagine a seeker, eyes bright with ambition, approaching the priest. "When will I be rich?" they ask, voice trembling with anticipation. The diviner casts the sacred palm nuts, reads the patterns they form, and responds with unexpected wisdom. "First, you must reconcile with your brother." This answer may seem puzzling at first, but it reveals a profound truth. In the Yoruba worldview, destiny is not a straight path to be rushed along, but a intricate weaving like a basket, carefully crafted by skilled hands. Each strand represents a choice, a relationship, an action. Only when the basket is complete does its true purpose and beauty become apparent. The seeker might leave, pondering this advice, realizing that wealth is not merely measured in coins, but in the strength of one's connections and the peace within one's heart. This is the way of teaching through metaphor, guiding through reflection. In the heart of Yoruba communities, served as more than personal counsel. It was the foundation of a judicial system, a way to navigate the complex waters of human interaction. Picture a village square, elders gathered in solemn assembly. Before them lies a dispute over land boundaries, a conflict that threatens to tear families apart. The priest is called forth, not as a judge, but as a conduit for ancient wisdom, through divination. He seeks guidance from the Orishas, the divine forces that shape the universe. The resolution that emerges is not simply about who owns what piece of earth, but about restoring harmony to the community. In this way, grounded Yoruba ethics in a system larger than any individual's ego or desire, it reminded people that their actions rippled out, affecting the delicate balance of society. A land dispute was never just about property, it was about maintaining the sacred bonds between neighbors, between the living and their ancestors. And when darkness fell upon the land, be it the shadow of war, the grip of plague, or the parched earth of drought, people did not turn to as a last resort. No, was the compass of the culture, the North Star by which they navigated troubled waters. Imagine a time of great upheaval, when the rains refuse to fall and crops wither in the fields. The community gathers, fear etched on their faces, the priest sits before his divination board, a calabash filled with sacred implements beside him. As he casts the chain, a hush falls over the crowd. The verses he recites speak of balance, disrupted, of sacrifices neglected, but they also offer hope a path forward through collective action and renewed devotion. The drought reveals is not just a natural phenomenon, but a reflection of disharmony in the community. Through guidance, the people are reminded of their interconnectedness with each other, with the land, with the spiritual realm. The solution to their crisis lies not in a single grand gesture, but in 1,000 small acts of restoration, mending broken relationships, honoring forgotten traditions, caring for the vulnerable among them. As the community begins to act on this wisdom, we see the true power of A's philosophy. It is not about predicting the future, but about shaping it through mindful living. It teaches that every choice, every interaction, is a thread in the grand tapestry of existence. The scene shifts, and we find ourselves in a modern city. Skyscrapers loom overhead, cars rush by, yet in a quiet corner, and priest still practices his ancient art. His clients are no longer just farmers and village elders, but business people, students, and professionals. They come seeking guidance in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. And though the questions may have changed, will I get the promotion? Should I pursue this degree? The underlying wisdom of remains constant. For in its essence is about understanding one's place in the grand scheme of things. It teaches that true success comes not from outpacing others, but from finding one's unique rhythm in the cosmic dance. It reminds us that wealth without wisdom is a hollow victory, and that the greatest achievements often come through collaboration and mutual support. As our journey through the world draws to a close, we return to the image of the basket, that metaphor for destiny. We see now that each of us is both the weaver and the woven, shaping our fate even as we are shaped by forces beyond our control. Philosophy whispers to us across centuries and continents, reminding us of timeless truths, that character matters more than circumstance, that patience often reveals what haste obscures, that humility opens doors that arrogance slams shut, and perhaps most importantly, it teaches us that we are all connected to each other, to our ancestors, to the very fabric of the universe, in a world that often feels fragmented and divided. This message of unity and interdependence is more vital than ever. As the final strands of our narrative are woven together, we are left with a profound appreciation for not as a relic of the past, but as a living philosophy with much to offer our modern world. It stands as a testament to the enduring power of African wisdom, a reminder that sometimes the oldest paths can lead us to the most innovative solutions. In the gentle rustling of palm fronds, in the rhythmic click of divination chains, in the measured words of the priest, we hear an invitation to see the world through new eyes, or perhaps to rediscover an ancient way of seeing that we've long forgotten. For in the end, teaches us that the greatest divination is not about foretelling the future, but about fully inhabiting the present. It's about recognizing the sacred in the everyday, the extraordinary in the ordinary. It's about understanding that each moment is a crossroads, each choice a seed of destiny. And so, as we close this chapter, let us carry with us the wisdom of let it be a light in times of darkness, a compass in moments of confusion. For in its teachings, we find not just answers, but the art of asking better questions that lead us not just to knowledge, but to wisdom, not just to success, but to fulfillment. In the intricate patterns we see reflected the complexity of our own lives, the interconnectedness of all things. And in that reflection, we find not just prophecy, but profound philosophy, a way of being in the world that honors the past, engages fully with the present, and looks with hope towards the future. In the twilight of the 19th century, as the sun began to set on the old world, a new darkness crept across the Yoruba lands. The British Empire, insatiable in its hunger for power and prestige, cast its gaze upon these ancient realms. But this time, their conquest wore a different mask, one of cultural appreciation and scientific inquiry. They came with pens and notebooks, these self-proclaimed scholars of the empire. Their eyes gleamed with a curiosity that masked a deeper, more insidious intent. Armed with degrees in anthropology and permits stamped with imperial seals, they stepped onto sacred soil. Their footfalls echoed through compounds that had stood silent for centuries, guardians of secrets never meant for foreign ear. These collectors, as they styled themselves, approached with smiles and outstretched hands. They spoke of friendship, of mutual understanding, but their words were as hollow as the cases they brought to carry away pieces of a world they could never truly comprehend. In the sacred groves of Ife, where the very air hummed with ancestral power, they moved like thieves in broad daylight. Their cameras clicked and whirred, reducing living oracles to mere specimens. Flashbulbs illuminated faces that had only ever known the soft glow of ritual fires. Each photograph was an act of violence, freezing dynamic spirits into static images. The collector's eyes roamed hungrily over bronze figures that had stood sentinel for generations. Their hands reached out, not in reverence, but with the greedy grasp of those who see only objects to be owned. They came bearing gifts, bottles of spirits to loosen tongues and cloud judgment. Some even resorted to outright theft, their imperial arrogance a shield against any notion of sacrilege. And all the while, the true oracles of Far watched. Their eyes, deep pools of ancient wisdom, reflected a sorrow beyond words. They saw their world being dismantled, piece by precious piece. Every artifact taken was a letter torn from a sacred text, leaving the story of their people increasingly fragmented and The colonial gaze was a distorting lens, warping the profound into the primitive. A bell that had called ancestors across the Veil of Death for centuries became nothing more than an oddity, a primitive musical instrument to be catalogued and displayed. Masks that held the very essence of deities were reduced to tribal curiosities, their power diminished by labels penned in a foreign hand. Night after night, under cover of darkness, entire shrines vanished. Sacred spaces that had pulsed with life and meaning for generations were hollowed out, their treasures packed away in wooden crates. These boxes, stamped and labeled as containing mere art, began their long journey across seas and continents. They traveled to cities of stone and steel, places where the air was thick with smoke and the ground never knew the touch of bare feet. In these cold metropolises, with their hearts of industry and minds fixated on progress, the sacred objects of the Yoba found themselves exiled, displayed behind glass, bathed in artificial light. They became curiosities for idle eyes that could never fathom their true significance. But these were not mere trinkets or decorative books. Each piece taken was a living conduit, a bridge between the world of flesh and the realm of spirit. The collectors, in their arrogance, saw only form and material. They were blind to the function, deaf to the whispers of ancestors that still clung to every curve and contour. These objects were not art in the Western sense, not creations meant solely for aesthetic appreciation. They were technology of the highest order, tools forged in the fires of millennia, honed to pierce the veil between worlds. Each mask was an interface, each statue a terminal connecting the present to the infinite wisdom of the past. The spiritual circuitry of entire communities was disrupted by these thefts. Rituals that had maintained the delicate balance between the seen and unseen realms faltered. The voices of ancestors grew fainter, the wisdom of oracles less certain. With each artifact removed, a thread was pulled from the intricate tapestry of Yoruba cosmology. This was not just theft in the material sense. It was epistemicide, the deliberate destruction of ways of knowing and being in the world. The collectors, whether they fully understood their actions or not, were engaged in a systematic dismantling of an entire knowledge system. They were uprooting a forest of wisdom to create a sterile garden of curiosity. In the halls of British museums and the private collections of the wealthy, these sacred objects sat in silence. Their power, divorced from context and ritual, lay dormant. Yet even in exile, they retained a spark of their original essence. They waited, patient as the earth itself, for the day when they might awaken once more. Back in the Yoruba lands, the absence of these artifacts left a palpable void. Elders gathered in emptied shrines, their prayers echoing in spaces that felt suddenly vast and hollow. Young initiates struggled to connect with traditions that had been physically torn away. The very fabric of their spiritual and cultural identity had been rent, leaving them to patch together meaning from what remained. Yet the spirit of the Yoruba people, like the Iroko tree, ran deep and strong. Though their sacred objects had been scattered to the winds, the essence of their beliefs could not be so easily up. In whispered stories, in dances that shook the earth, in songs that soared to the heavens, they kept their traditions alive. They adapted, finding new ways to commune with the ancestors, to read the patterns of fate. The oracles, though bereft of their ancient tools, found their inner sight growing sharper. The absence of physical artifacts forced a deepening of spiritual practice, a return to the source of their power that lay not in objects, but in the unbreakable connection between the people and their gods. As decades passed, a new generation arose, children of a world bridging past and future. They began to question. They looked at the empty spaces in their shrines and asked where their heritage had gone. They heard stories of great-grandparents who had watched helplessly as their sacred treasures were carried away. These young ones, armed with education, both traditional and modern, began to raise their voices. They spoke of repatriation, of cultural patrimony. They argued in the language of the colonizers for the return of what was stolen. In universities and international forums, they presented their case, forcing the world to confront the long shadow of imperial plunder. Slowly, painfully, slowly, some museums began to listen. A few artifacts made the long journey home, carried not in crates, labeled as curiosities, but honored as returning elders. Each homecoming was a celebration, a small victory in a battle for cultural survival that had raged for over a century. Yet for every object returned, thousands more remained in exile. The great museums of Europe and America clung to their ill-gotten treasures, hiding behind laws written by the very empires that had sanctioned the original. They spoke of preservation, of universal heritage, willfully ignoring the living cultures from which these pieces had been torn. The oracles of Ife, those who had watched in silence as their world was dismantled, now spoke with renewed vigor. They reminded their people that true power lay not in bronze or wood, but in the unbroken line of knowledge passed down through generations. They taught that every person was a living artifact, carrying within them the wisdom of the ancestors. And so, even as the fight for repatriation continued, the Yoruba people reclaimed their heritage in ways the collectors could never have foreseen. They digitized their oral histories, created virtual museums where diaspora communities could connect with their roots. They forged new sacred objects, imbuing them with the power of both tradition and innovation. In the end, what the collectors failed to understand was that culture is not static. It is not something that can be bottled and displayed. Culture is a living, breathing entity, constantly evolving, adapting, and renewing itself. The Yoruba spirit, like water, found new channels when the old ones were blocked. The story of the collectors and their plunder is not just a tale of loss. It is a testament to the resilience of a people who refused to be defined by what was taken from them. It is a reminder that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in knowledge, in community, and in the unbreakable bonds between the living, the dead, and the yet unborn. As the sun sets on another day in the Yoruba heartlands, the air still hums with power, the oracles still speak, the ancestors still listen, and in museums across the sea, behind glass, and under guard, the exiled artifacts wait. They wait for the day when they will return home, not as conquered trophies, but as prodigal children, ready to take their place once more in the great dance of Yoruba spirituality. After the looting came the silence. The sacred groves, once alive with the whispers of ancient wisdom, now stood empty and forlorn. Priestesses returned to find their altars bare, their sacred spaces violated. Young initiates, eager to learn the ways of their ancestors, reached out with trembling hands, only to grasp at shadows. The elders, keepers of sacred knowledge, found their tongues heavy with fear and shame. The chain of oral memory, a living tapestry woven through generations, now hung in tatters. Shame, like a poisonous mist, seeped into the cracks of their fractured culture. Colonization, a relentless tide, had swept away the familiar landmarks of their spiritual landscape. Displacement scattered the people, severing the delicate threads that had bound them to their ancestral lands. In this new world, the old ways became whispers, secrets spoken in hushed tones behind closed doors. The oracles, once the beating heart of their spiritual life, fell silent. Their voices, once clear and resonant with divine wisdom, now faltered and faded. How could they speak the will of the gods when the very tools of their craft had been torn from their hands? You see, divination isn't just a matter of words spoken or gestures made. It's an intricate ecology, a delicate balance of elements woven together by centuries of practice and belief. The tools, carved with symbols whose meanings stretch back to the dawn of their civilization. The chants, rhythmic incantations that bridge the gap between the mortal and the divine. The sacred relics, physical manifestations of spiritual power, anchoring the ethereal to the earthly realm. And when those relics are taken, ripped from their rightful place in the heart of the community, what remains? When they are sold to the highest bidder, their spiritual significance reduced to a price tag, what becomes of the culture that birthed them? When they are displayed behind museum glass, stripped of context and meaning, mere curiosities for foreign eyes, what happens to the people left behind? What's left is a shell, a hollow echo of what once was. The wisdom that once thundered through their lives, shaping every aspect of their existence, is reduced to a whisper, a faint memory of power, of connection, of belonging. In the groves where initiates once learned the secrets of the universe, only silence reigns. The altars, once adorned with offerings and alive with the energy of devotion, stand bare and cold. The sacred spaces, once thrumming with the power of centuries of belief, now feel empty, abandoned not just by people, but by the very gods themselves. Children born in the aftermath of this spiritual devastation grow up in a world fundamentally altered. In post-colonial Ife, where once proud traditions have been branded as primitive, backward, unworthy of preservation, these children inherit a legacy of doubt. They look at the remnants of their ancestral faith with eyes clouded by shame and confusion. They are told that the gods of their ancestors have disappeared, vanished into the mists of time like so many outdated superstitions. But this is a lie born of misunderstanding and willful ignorance. The gods have not disappeared. They have been dislocated, forcibly removed from the lands and people they once watched over. The gods still exist, but they have been rendered mute, their voices silenced by the absence of the tools and traditions that once gave them form and voice in the mortal world. They linger in the shadows of memory, in the stories whispered by grandmothers to wide-eyed children, in the inexplicable longing for something lost that haunts the dreams of a displaced people, in the museums of distant lands, behind glass cases and under harsh lights. The physical manifestations of these gods stand as mute witnesses to this cultural devastation. Masks that once danced with divine energy now stare blankly at curious tourists. Statues that once received the prayers and offerings of devoted worshippers now collect dust, their power dormant, waiting. The irony is bitter and profound. In the name of preservation, of saving these artifacts for posterity, the very culture that gave them meaning has been irreparably damaged. The objects have been saved, but at what cost? The living, breathing tradition that birthed them withers and fades, starved of the vital connection to its material heritage. Yet, even in this silence, in this seemingly barren spiritual landscape, hope persists. It lives in the memories of the elders, in the curiosity of the young, in the stubborn refusal of a people to let go of who they are. It smolders like embers, waiting for the breath of renewed interest, of reclamation, to fan it back into flame. For the gods have not truly disappeared. They have been dislocated, yes, but not destroyed. They wait, patient as mountains, eternal as the stars, for their people to find them again, in the heart of every child who asks about the old ways, in the hands of every artist who creates in the style of their ancestors, in the voice of every storyteller who keeps the old tales alive. The gods live on. The challenge now is one of reconnection, of bridging the chasm that colonization and cultural theft have carved between a people and their heritage. It is a task that requires courage, for it means facing the shame and doubt that have been internalized over generations. It demands persistence, for the path back to cultural wholeness is long and fraught with obstacles. But most of all, it requires a willingness to listen to the whispers of the ancestors that still echo in the blood, to listen to the land, which holds the memories of countless generations in its very soil, to listen to the objects themselves, those that remain and those that have been taken, for they to have stories to tell. In this listening, in this patient, determined effort to reconnect, lies the possibility of renewal. The oracles may speak again, their voices strengthened by the very struggle to reclaim them. The altars may once more become centers of community and devotion, their power magnified by the journey taken to rebuild them. And the children, those born into a world where their heritage was deemed worthless, may yet grow to be the keepers of a tradition reborn. They may stand proud, knowing that their ancestors did not fail, did not abandon them, but held on with all their might, preserving what they could against impossible odds. For in the end, this is not just a story of loss. It is a story of resilience, of the indomitable spirit of a people who refuse to be erased. It is a story of hope, of the possibility of cultural resurrection, of gods and people finding each other again across the vast distances of time and space. The silence that fell after the looting was deep and profound, but it was not. It could not be eternal. For as long as there are those who remember, those who question, those who seek, the possibility of renewal remains. The gods have not disappeared. They have been dislocated, and one day they will find their way home. In the 21st century, something began to shift. A whisper at first, a faint stirring in the collective consciousness of a people long silenced. Across the vast expanse of Nigeria and throughout the diaspora, a movement was awakening. Artists, their hands stained with paint and clay, began to sculpt a new narrative. Activists, their voices hoarse from years of shouting into the void, found their words finally echoing in hallowed halls. And the traditional custodians, their eyes gleaming with ancestral wisdom, stepped forward to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. They demanded not just the return of bronzes, those tangible pieces of history that had been torn from their homeland. No, their plea reached deeper into the very soul of their culture. They sought the return of meaning, of context, of the sacred threads that wove their identity into a tapestry of resilience and pride. This isn't just about museums. Those sterile spaces where history is displayed behind glass, stripped of its vitality. This is about something far more profound, far more urgent. This is about repairing the spiritual architecture of a people. It's about mending the invisible bonds that connect the living to their ancestors, that anchor a community to its past and propel it into the future. In Benin City, where the ancient kingdom once stood in all its glory, change is stirring. The air is thick with possibility, with the scent of palm oil and the distant echo of royal drums. New museums are rising from the red earth. Yes, but that's merely the surface of a deeper transformation. More importantly, old shrines are being reopened. Sacred spaces, long abandoned or hidden, are once again filled with the smoke of ritual fires and the murmur of prayers. In courtyards and forest groves, elders are passing down knowledge that was nearly lost, teaching young hands the intricate art of divination, the rhythm of sacred dances, the power of words spoken in ancient tongues. Oracles, those living bridges between the seen and unseen worlds, are being trained again. Young men and women, their eyes bright with curiosity and determination, are learning to interpret the whispers of the gods, to read the patterns in cowrie shells and cola nuts. They are reclaiming a birthright that colonialism tried to erase, rediscovering the power that lies dormant in their blood. And the youth, oh the youth, they are a force to be reckoned with. Armed with smartphones and an insatiable hunger for truth, they are asking questions that colonialism tried to silence. They're delving into archives, poring over old photographs, listening to the stories of their grandparents with new ears. They're piecing together a history that was fragmented, reclaiming narratives that were distorted or erased. In Ilefe, the cradle of Yoruba's civilization, a similar renaissance is unfolding. The ancient city pulses with renewed energy as its people reconnect with their roots. In the shadow of the Unis Palace, craftsmen are reviving forgotten techniques, their fingers remembering the shapes and patterns that their ancestors once created. The air rings with the sound of metal on metal, of chisel on wood, as new generations of artists breathe life into old forms. Lagos, that sprawling metropolis by the sea, is not left behind in this cultural awakening. In its galleries and studios, contemporary artists are engaging with their heritage in bold new ways. They're fusing traditional motifs with modern mediums, creating works that speak to both the past and the future. Their art is a bridge, spanning centuries and continents, challenging the world to see Nigeria not as it was portrayed in colonial narratives, but as it truly is: complex, vibrant, and profoundly alive. The return of these artifacts, when it happens, is not the end. It is merely the beginning of a much longer, much deeper process of remembering. Each bronze head, each ivory mask, each intricately carved tusk that finds its way back home carries with it the weight of history and the promise of renewal. These objects are more than mere curiosities or works of art. They are vessels of memory, carriers of spiritual essence. In the hands of their rightful custodians, they will once again serve their true purpose, not as static displays, but as active participants in the cultural and spiritual life of their communities. The bronze heads may have crossed oceans, enduring long years in foreign lands, displayed under harsh lights that failed to capture their true radiance. But the ancestral voice, it stayed. It remained a quiet but persistent presence, whispering through generations, waiting for the moment when it would be heard again. That voice never truly left the red soil of Benin, or the bustling streets of Lagos. It lingered in the stories passed down from grandmothers to grandchildren, in the rhythms of drums played at festivals, in the patterns woven into cloth and carved into calabash. It waited, patient and unyielding, for its people to remember how to listen. And now it is speaking again. Its words are carried on the wind that rustles through the leaves of ancient Iroko trees. They're whispered in the splash of waterfalls and the rumble of distant thunder. They re-etched into the lines on the faces of elders and sparkle in the eyes of newborn babies. This voice speaks of resilience, of a culture that refused to be erased despite centuries of oppression and theft. It speaks of creativity, of the enduring power of art to capture the essence of a people's spirit. It speaks of continuity, of the unbroken line that connects the present to the past and reaches into the future. In Benin City, a young priestess tends to a shrine that has stood for centuries. Her hands move with practiced grace as she arranges offerings, her lips forming words in a language that has survived against all odds. She is both old and new, a living embodiment of tradition in a rapidly changing world. In Ailife, a sculptor sits before a lump of clay, his fingers shaping it with the same techniques used by his ancestors 1,000 years ago. Yet the figure emerging from his hands is unmistakably contemporary, a fusion of ancient wisdom and modern insight. In Lagos, a curator stands in an empty gallery, envisioning the day when it will be filled with returned treasures. But she knows that the true value of these objects lies not in their monetary worth or artistic merit, but in their power to heal, to teach, to inspire. Across Nigeria and beyond, people are waking up to the sound of this ancestral voice. They're remembering songs long forgotten, relearning dances that their bodies somehow still know. They're rediscovering the power of their own stories, the strength that comes from knowing who you are and where you come from. This awakening is not without its challenges. There are still battles to be fought, negotiations to be had, misconceptions to be. The path of restitution is long and often fraught with obstacles. But with each step, with each returned artifact, with each reclaimed story, the spiritual architecture of a people is being repaired. The bronze heads are coming home. Yes, but more importantly, the spirit they embody is being reawakened. It's a spirit of pride, of resilience, of creativity and innovation. It's a spirit that has survived centuries of attempts to silence it, and now it's rising again, stronger than ever. This is not just about reclaiming objects. It's about reclaiming identity, reclaiming dignity, reclaiming the right to tell one's own story. It's about healing wounds that have festered for generations, about reconnecting broken links in the chain of cultural transmission. As the sun sets over the Niger Delta, casting long shadows across the land, the ancestral voice grows stronger. It echoes through time and space, calling its children home, and they are answering. From the streets of Lagos to the diaspora communities scattered across the globe, they are coming home. Not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally. They are reclaiming their heritage. Piece by piece, story by story, artifact by artifact. And as they do, they are weaving a new tapestry of identity, one that honors the past while embracing the future. The return movement is more than a political or cultural initiative. It is a spiritual awakening, a collective remembering. It is the sound of a people finding their voice again, of ancestors and descendants reaching across the divide of time to clasp hands. And so, as night falls, and the first stars appear in the African sky, the voice continues to speak. It speaks of hope, of renewal, of a future rooted in a past that can never truly be lost. It speaks, and its children listen, ready to carry its message forward into a new dawn. In the depths of ancient forests, where the whispers of forgotten gods still linger, the earth remembers, not in the grand narratives of conquerors or the sterile pages of history books, but in the quiet persistence of rituals that have weathered centuries of change. To be an Oroco was never a simple act of proclamation. It was a sacred communion with the unseen, a delicate dance between the visible and the invisible. It was to become a living bridge between worlds, where the rustling of leaves carried messages from ancestors, and the patterns in sand revealed the secrets of tomorrow. This wisdom didn't seek validation from distant lands or translation into foreign tongues. It was a truth as old as the continent itself, woven into the very fabric of existence. In this intricate tapestry, the elements themselves were alive with meaning. Iron whispered of strength and transformation, water flowed with the rhythms of life and death, and fire burned with the fierce light of judgment and purification. Yes, we cannot deny the scars of history. Sacred groves have been felled, ancient artifacts torn from their rightful homes to be displayed behind glass in faraway museums. But even in this diaspora of memory, hope persists. For just as a few scattered stars can guide a lost traveler, so too can the fragments of our heritage light the way back to our roots. Across the vast expanse of Africa and beyond its shores, a new generation is awakening. Young seekers, their eyes bright with curiosity and determination, are returning to the places their ancestors once walked. They gather pieces of broken traditions, a half-remembered prayer, the cadence of an old song, the reverent silence before a crumbling shrine. From these shards, they are crafting new altars, not of stone and iron, but of memory and intention. Perhaps not every stolen relic will find its way home. Perhaps some knowledge has been lost to the relentless march of time. But the spirit of the Oracle, that profound connection to the wisdom of the earth and the echoes of those who came before, that is returning. And in many ways, this rekindling of inner fire is a greater triumph than the reclaiming of any physical object. For to embrace the role of the Oracle in this modern age is to declare to the world that Africa's voice has never truly been silenced. It is to proclaim that our continent has always possessed its own profound ways of understanding the universe. These were not borrowed philosophies or imported belief systems, but knowledge as deeply rooted as the baobab and as rhythmic as the beating of drums. They were, and are radical in their refusal to be erased. In a world that often seems to have lost its way, drowning in the cacophony of technology and the pursuit of progress at any cost, these ancient ways of knowing become more vital than ever. They remind us to pause, to listen not just with our ears, but with our entire being, to feel the pulse of the earth beneath our feet and recognize the sacred in the ordinary. The Oracle's wisdom teaches us that true power lies not in domination, but in harmony. It shows us that strength can be found in vulnerability, and that the greatest leaders are those who know how to listen, not just to the loudest voices, but to the whispers of the wind and the stories etched in stone. As we stand at this crossroads of past and future, we are called to be more than mere observers of history. We are invited to become active participants in its unfolding, to pick up the threads of our ancestors' wisdom and weave them into the fabric of tomorrow. Let us not simply mourn what has been lost, but celebrate what endures. Let us honor the resilience of traditions that have survived against all odds, and nurture the seeds of knowledge that are once again taking root in fertile minds and hearts. For in this reclaiming, in this remembering, we do more than preserve the past. we forge a new path forward, one that honors the depth and complexity of African thought, one that recognizes the interconnectedness of all things, one that dares to listen when the world has grown deaf to the subtle harmonies of existence. And so, as the sun sets on another day, casting long shadows across lands both familiar and strange, let us pause, let us breathe deeply, feeling the earth beneath our feet and the sky above our heads. Let us open our hearts to the whispers that still echo through time, the voices of oracles, ancestors, and the very soul of Africa itself. For in those whispers lies a truth that has never faded, a wisdom that has never died. It is a call to remember who we are, where we come from, and the immense power that resides within us. It is an invitation to reclaim our role as keepers of sacred knowledge, as bridges between worlds, as oracles for a new age, and in answering that call, we not only honor our past, but light the way towards a future, where African wisdom once again takes its rightful place in the great symphony of human understanding, a future where the world remembers how to listen, and the earth still whispers back.